I'm Jeff Goebel. I live in Belen, New Mexico, have a little farm here. Um, I have the honor of introducing Eugene. One of the things when I think about who Eugene is, there's that old saying that says, if you want to get something done, talk to a busy person. And that's what I see about Eugene. Um, I met him first with the Rural Coalition a couple of years ago, and it's a group that's working on issues in rural areas. And again, he's busy and involved and engaged with that. Um, and then about 2 summers ago, we had quite a rainstorm, couple of them through the summer. Um, Two of them shut I-25 down. The third one flooded the town of Belen, shut a lot of businesses down. And all those events were related to poor soil health, that the water, the soil was in such condition that the water didn't get absorbed, infiltration was poor, and there was just this huge amount of water that flowed off and then broke the irrigation canal ditch and flooded a lot of people. And Eugene was one of those. He got 2 inches of soil covering his farmland that year. And so I met Eugene more personally with that event. And then we've just built a good friendship and whatnot since that time. So anyway, without saying more, I'd like to just turn it over to Eugene to share his story tonight. So thank you, Eugene, for being with us.
Yeah. So let me see, soil and the earth. I was actually, if you probably saw my brief bio, but I was born in East LA. So anybody ever saw Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke? That's East LA. And, so in watching that, a lot of my kids used to say, that's not a real deal. And I'm telling them what street that is and, where that is and what it's like, because I grew up there. But see, what people don't know about East LA is that it's a number of small farming and ranching communities in terms of background. So you have Japanese, Chinese, Latinos, the Blacks, the Jews, that were heavily populated in East Los Angeles, and a lot of that central area was Boyle Heights. So Boyle Heights, people, had livestock in the front yard, always had gardens. You had people that hunted, my uncles were hunters and fishermen, and then certain populations controlled certain markets, like the downtown LA vegetable markets were controlled by the Japanese. So like what would happen when people came home, they would barter, like commodities. So nobody, in our neighborhood really went hungry because there was so much food always coming into the neighborhood. So, with that as a background, and I never really thought about it, but like I was always involved with horses, livestock, ranching. People think that LA is like a city, but it's like a number of people who were at that time that were in LA, came from either Mexico or the deep South, like the Eastern Seaboard. Some people migrated, but they all had this agrarian lifestyle. So the agrarian lifestyle that still has a great appreciation for the earth, I think that's what I came forth with. And eventually my family, we had a ranch up in the foothills of Altadena, which is just above Pasadena, Roseville City. And we did farming and ranching there. And so we had a transition of coming to New Mexico. And when we transitioned and coming to New Mexico, that lifestyle, maintained itself. We found ourselves in the Belen area. At first in an area called Sabinal, which when we moved out there were probably only 8 families in the whole vicinity. So, my kids were like, Dad, you done moved us out to the boonies. There's nobody here. There's nothing to do. And every complaint that they had really spoke positive to me because, There were no helicopters. You didn't hear gunfire, on a nightly basis. No police speeding up and down the street. I mean, like I would see them come across the ditch coming home from school, and they were running across the ditch. I was wondering what they doing running across the ditch. Well, the mosquitoes were chasing them. I'm going like, okay, this rural environment, that they grew up in. I mean, like growing up, they never had, I don't think they ever too often had to drink city water because we lived on a ranch that had a natural spring. So, I mean, they bathed in natural spring water. They drank natural water from these underground springs. And then when we came out here, of course, where we live, there are underground wells. So the lifestyle that they adopted to, and then we're vegetarians, so I mean, the healthy diet, healthy exercise as a means, I think, to exposure, gave them a strong perspective. And then, like our backgrounds, we all have been performing artists in my family. So, that strong ancestral lineages to the performing arts brought us into, I think, a cultural perspective where we were really, like strongly accepted into New Mexico. And I have been involved with a number of environmentalists who were instrumental in establishing the EPA and then Earth Day. So those ties that equal, like us being earthlings and having a concept in terms of living, as we bring it into how we are thinking now. So there's a number of people who, because of my food systems work and, my strong consciousness as far as like people of the earth and a respect for our cultures, brought us to a point where we are now. And I was saying to Isabel, Rob, Jeff, and Christina, them reaching out to me probably at this moment is very significant because we're talking about life. I mean, right now, we do deal with an invisible, not friendly enemy, COVID-19. We got over 112,000 people who have, died in our country as a result. So we're battling that. The ongoing death rate and very visible murders of Black men, is coming into everyone's consciousness. So it's like, these are undeniable truths, that all of us are addressing. It's like, well, Jeff, Rob, Isabel, and Christina, you are definitely making me be accountable, and I want to be accountable to life. So the relationship that we have, not just with each other, but with the soil and the water, becomes very significant because that's what produces the life that we all need, because everybody eats. Everybody eats. The animals eat, humankind, we eat. So if we don't have that relationship, as small farmers and ranchers, to, dig into the earth, put our hands in the earth, advocate for those who desire to have their relationship. So, people who are doing small gardens or acreage, they're like, hey, you know what? That is going to be a very necessary food source. Because in the next 60 to 90 days, when we deal from a policy level of other small farmers and ranchers, throughout New Mexico, some of the issues that we deal with, are going to become nationally recognized and nationally significant, because as food shortages transpire, people will, have a better idea from whence food comes. So I mean, the network of small farmers and small ranchers who either have livestock or have access to land where they can plant, we have to support those efforts, because in 60 to 90 days, when food becomes short, people who, as neighbors, just like the culture that I came up in when I was saying in East LA, people didn't go hungry. because people were, planting their gardens. People were bringing commodities into the community to share. So if we're not in a position to share, if we don't have the advocates who are promoting healthy soil, healthy water, then farmers and ranchers are not going to produce healthy commodity, healthy production. So this whole move towards healthy production, like that starts for me, my couple of acres outside. I got to, really delve into that because my land that suffered during the flood, which we had, and it's our whole little village. We had 5 feet of water outside and probably 2.5 to 3.5 feet of water in everybody's home. So a real close working associate of mine who pulled me into a lot of this, Jaime Chavez, he kind of chuckled. He said, you know what, Eugene, God had to get your attention by sending you a flood because you thought you were going to be retired, and your concept of retirement was going to isolate you and separate you from all the BS that everybody deals with. And God sent you a flood so you would pay attention. He said, is he going to have to send you another flood so you pay better attention next time? I was like, no, bro, that's not going to happen. I'm paying very close attention. So the advocacy role, to be better humans, better relationship to the soil and the water, and aggressively pursue, I think, positive outcomes. That when, at a time, and we're at a very critical moment, because no one can deny the death rate. When we watch a human being, literally murdered in front of our eyes, who just, it doesn't happen to be Black, but specifically is Black, okay? Then we find out that the disproportionate numbers of those who have least access to healthcare happens to be the African American community. When I'm going to conferences that are dealing with farm to cafeteria, farm to school, the numbers tell us that, our population have the least access. Where are the food deserts? They're in my community. So, as we go through this, and there's a realization as human beings that, people are suffering on the planet, right in our country. The most prosperous country on the face of the earth, that we are now having to resolve century-old issues. But as a result of these century-old issues that we must resolve now, then it creates an opportunity like this. But see, the people who are doing good work, and I say that, the leadership of this forum, they are doing very good work. And as a result of the very good work that they're doing, then they know things. They don't, it's not by chance that I know them and they know me. So that a moment that says, well, hey, you know what is a Black man thinking? You know what? Yeah, we know Eugene. Okay, let me call him up. Let me hit him up, because he needs to, and I don't think that you said it in your mind, but in your heart, well, he needs to be accountable. We have to hold one another accountable. So in this process of accountability, then this notion that we're dealing with right now, to have open discussion, even though it's vis-a-vis virtual application, that we must have this discussion. And a number of small farmers and ranchers do not have access to avenues. So, we have an additional challenge in the fact that many of our neighbors who don't have access, who need access, can't get access to disaster relief, because most of the disaster relief is online. Well, one of the big dilemmas that we've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years was infrastructure development. Well, if the infrastructure is not in place like now, then all of the online applications that have to, that demand, that is the avenue to apply for the disaster relief. Once again, a segment of the population is right now, as we're online right now, is left out. So all of the work I think that, that we have been exposed to at the policy level, at the advocacy level, that this tremendous, and I call them dilemmas right now, the tremendous push for the dilemmas, they're not going to resolve themselves, but it's us who have the opportunities to be online, to get information, to do something, then, it behooves us that we do something. If it's nothing less than, being in contact with one another, to bring whatever the issue is to the forefront so that it gets to the forefront. It's like in those who do dairy and like cream, the cream rises to the top. So this synthesis of how things work, that as it rises to the top, see, we need to have adequate and right answers. Those who haven't participated in the census, they must participate in the census. Those who haven't registered to vote, they must register to vote. And we just had a tremendous dilemma yesterday in Georgia. So the system is overwhelmed, it's collapsing, we're challenged, people are in the street, so this whole movement, they're like, what must we do next? Well, all of us need to be better informed than we were 24 hours ago. So, I recognize how I named them Isabel, Rob, Jeff, and Christina had conversation. So they pinpointed me. So a portion of that is the acknowledgement that these are some people that I could trust. So these are some people in terms of trust that I would say, well, you know what? I personally have to respond. And the response is fresh information. Well, a lot of the fresh information that I come up with it because I go out every day and I'm working on the soil. Because if I work on the soil, then I'm going to be ready to plant. Well, the soil talks to me. The soil will talk to you. So if you do these basic things, then we're going to have a better comprehension in terms of pure thought. Soil is not going to argue with you. It will produce for you. If you have a struggle to get clean water, a lot of my friends that are up in Detroit do not have access to clean water. A lot of my friends in Navajo Nation, they do not have access to water. So when we're in this COVID-19 culture that we have to recover from, with people who don't have access to the need for personal hygiene because they don't have water, these are the things that we have to advocate for. So me as a person who is really responsible for, the advocacy role, I got to become a better advocate. So when Jeff is joking with me, well, give the busy man one more thing to do and he'll get it done. Well, we have to assume these responsible positions, and we have to know who our community is. You have to know your politicians. May not get along with them. I have a very good friend who is in a different party than I am. And we had a conversation this morning. And, we just work, we work. So when it comes down to the issues of working and advocating for small farmers and ranchers to have access to the resources that are needed, then that's all that matters, that we work on getting the access. So it's not about the politics, it's not about the religion, it's about once we identify whatever the need is, then we have to apply the talents and the gifts that God has given us to those specific needs. Because if we don't, in the next 60 to 90 days, if you don't know the farmers, if you don't know the ranchers where you can gain an alternative food source, you're going to be in trouble. If I, as a small farmer and rancher, don't get food in the ground in the next 10 days, then I'm not being a responsible person. So because I'm going to have neighbors, I'm going to have church members, I'm going to have community members that need access to an alternative food source. then amongst that network, we got to be ready. So the readiness, comes down, is, from what I'm seeing, is a specific relationship that each of us has to the land. More land, more production. But even if you've got a pot that you can plant, you need to plant something. So that relationship is far more understood. And then, we have to hold the political apparatus, those individuals that we do know in that vein. You have to know. We have to personally take a step to create an understanding of those relationships, that you have a phone number of your elected officials, so that when issues do come up, and issues will be coming up, that you know who you need to call, to support, and so we do that. Myself, I do that, on the local level. I do it on the state level. I do it on the national level. Because if I don't, then I can't be the advocate that people look towards me to be. I have to know my economic development directors. And hopefully on this call, one of the top economic development directors in New Mexico, who has emerged out of a small village, and he is responsible for bringing Facebook, which is international, like recognized service to a small community. So we have to know these things. We have to know people that have the expertise that we're going to need to make what we do better, and share with groups like this, so that as we move forward, it's not just the want or the desire, but we got to have the expertise, and we have to have the young people, that are thinking about becoming involved with the food system. We have to not only, accept them, we have to work with them, because this is going to be their world. As we become older, we have to be able to be in a position to, foster relationships and pass this information on. People that we, a lot of the follow-up that we're starting to have to target and become focused on, that those who even have an idea of how to access property, whether it's a public domain, private access, large or small, we have to provide whatever it is that they may need, that we have as expertise, to help them and assist them to move them into position to hold on to the land that they have. Because if we don't hold on to the land that is available, then that's going to be the avenue of our own destruction, because there's going to be a demand on food. And if there's fallow land that's not being utilized, to produce food, then once again, those communities that are at risk now will be at further risk then. And I think that, like, is it Prince William, his wife, Angela, made a statement when they were asking her, what does she think about all this, And she said, what I think is that when we need to do something and we don't, we should be standing up to say what it is that we think. And I kind of thought to myself, oh, wow, I don't want that to reflect me, that at the moment that I should say something that I don't, I sit in the back of the room, I'm not going to say anything, because whatever it is that I say might give me 10 more assignments. So, I think I'll just shut my mouth. Well, we're at a point where, shutting one's mouth, does not add to the progress that we have to be accountable to. And so, that's how we kind of started up. That's what my thinking has been. And it's 6 o'clock, so I think it's time for any questions and answers.
So thank you, Eugene, so much for your thoughts and your very, very, important words. It means a lot to me. We're very grateful to have you here with us. And just before I open it up to questions, I just want to say that I heard a lot from you just now that was touching to me. These are undeniable truths that we need to create access for, healthy food and clean water and information, and we need to be accountable to life. We need to have a relationship with the soil and the land, and we need to pay attention and stop leaving people out. We need to be better informed. We need to listen to the soil. We need to know our community to grow our community, and we need to address the need and work together at it. Bipartisan work together.
Yep.
And look to the young people and hold on to the land and much more. And so I'm very grateful for your thoughts. There are a few folks that have already asked some questions through the chat, but I want to give them in order an opportunity to ask their question in person on the screen. So to start with, Claudia Risner, would you like to unmute and ask your question to Eugene Pickett?
Sure, thank you so much. Eugene and everyone, thanks for including me in this. I really enjoyed hearing your comments and your thoughts. You made a point of saying that this is a bipartisan issue, and it absolutely is. How do we as candidates or as elected officials advocate for you and your group?
Well, I think he took the first step by, responding and connecting. Okay, and I think all of our information is readily available. So either, plugging into the organizers of this, which is Isabel, Rob Hirsch, Jeff Goebel, and Christina, and I think all of my information is probably on the bio. Am I right? Okay, so connect, maintain the connections. And I think that as we move forward and you're on the contact lists, that this group is very aggressive. I'm very aggressive in maintaining contact and doing a lot of follow-up. So for us, that becomes the work. But, it's like when you plant a seed and it's a good crop and you nurture it and you baby it and, all the way through harvest, this in effect will become a harvest, at some point, And so it's the ideas that we've used to manifest, I think, specific programs that equal, doing the work, connect you in such a way that you end up, as a significant contributor. A significant contributor is one that is going to be productive, is one that sometimes, I get challenged. They're like, why are you going across the aisle? Well, that guy right there, or that lady right there, this is what she does. I need to be engaged with her, because if she's going to help me do what we need to do for our community in terms of creating a better access in food system development, I can't, it cannot be political.
But Kai, I want you to
Yeah, it's got to be real. So we make it real, and I think it's a very important question that you got to put your ego and a lot of things in your back pocket, so that we can move forward. And this is what's important now.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great shot, great save. Reed, hop up, quick.
So some people have need to mute if they could. Different sounds. Anyway, if you're not going to be asking a question at the moment, please try to keep your computer muted. And as we go, Naomi has a question. I want to make sure if she wants to ask it in person.
Sure, I'd like to ask it in person. I'm in Washington State, and my question is, do you work at mostly the state level, individual towns, or counties? Because here it's mostly counties that provide the information about soil conservation, noxious weeds, all that kind of stuff. So which organizations do you typically work through to advocate change for?
Some of them would probably be better, but this I'm talking to you from personal experience, okay? You know, we end up as individuals having to do the necessary homework to find out the avenue. So, you know, and there's a lot of, I think, misinformation, you know, and misinformation will equal you go to the wrong person and you have an expectation. And then because it's such a cumbersome working forward, you get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, you don't want to do the work. You know, you rather somebody else to do the work. Well, return to the concept of the soil. If you don't prepare the soil, you are not going to get a good return. You know, so not only are you going to have to do the prep the soil, you're going to have to weed it, you're going to have to water it, you're going to have to treat it like a big baby, you know, and it's going to be
I've got it. Yeah, I've got an 11 acre big baby, and my fiance is out there with a John Deere right now taking care of it.
Okay, so when you're doing that, right, it's the same concept that you transfer over, because like going from LA County to New Mexico, you know, I mean, they have the same programs in place, but they're administered differently. So certain things that are administered at the state or at the city level or at the county level in LA, it starts at the state level and then it goes down to specific supervisory programs, you know, like, you know, when I found out that the Soil and Water Conservation District had the purview to take care of certain things, well, I had to come all the way back down from the state, work my way into the county to, you know, figure out that specific advocacy programs and responsibilities started with the supervisors of the Soil and Water Conservation District.
That chain of command and where the resources are for individuals.
Exactly. So we have to take it upon ourselves to, you know, like as advocates, that we're going to be responsible. We're going to do whatever work. You know, it may take a day. I need you to drive that John Deere right through City Hall. So when we get some
He's out there.
yeah, you know, so we have to be creative, you know, and I think that and this is nothing against men, but see, women have an ability to be far more creative than we do. So we have to, you know, like put our egos in our back pocket and like sometimes look over at the ladies like, hey, what do you think about that? And they're going to give you a thought. They're like, oh, wow, you know, I wasn't thinking about it like that. Well, my daughter, we were at a conference and she was explaining to this group how she grew up on a working ranch. And I'm thinking to myself, what working ranch did you grow up on? And then I thought about it later and we talked and I said, well, that was just a lifestyle to me of how we needed to work with the resources that we had. But her concept now as a young business lady was, hey, you know what? I know about this because I grew up on a working ranch. So her thought that she shared with me in those precious moments became a reality for me, because now when I look at it, that a working ranch produces income streams. But I wasn't thinking about it like that when she was growing up. But if I had, I would have been far more, not that I'm going to say that I wasn't successful, but I would have been far more successful. So we need to work on the successes, and the successes are going to take work, you know, and we got to be the ones who do the work. So if you want to be in contact with us, you know, the numbers are there. You know what I'm saying? You know, and we respond to people all times of day or night. Because if we get a flood that comes through here at 2 o'clock in the morning, we're not staying in bed. We got to get out there and deal with what we got to deal with.
Yeah,
so
we have plenty of those here.
Yeah, so it's the same interaction in terms of community interaction, that even though you're in Washington, okay, because there are certain projects and programs that we do that are national. Well, the national groups, we have to take that level of accountability or the support that you may need so that we deliver. But if you don't hold us to be accountable to deliver what your need may be, then see, you know, that's your fault, not mine.
So I'd like to thank you for your question, Naomi, and I just want to let Eugene and everyone know we have several other questions too that we want to make sure get a chance to be answered. And the next question is from Lisa Hecht. If you would like Lisa to unmute And then after
Done.
you ask your question, if you could mute again, just because sometimes we have a lot of noise coming in.
Gotcha. I'm a
Go
long
ahead.
time Zoomer. So first of all, thank you, Eugene. This is wonderful. And you said something that I really agree with, and that's hold on to the land.
Yeah.
And you know, I read about how much land is lost in America every year. You know, and right here in Boise, in Ruby Red, Boise, Idaho, where I've been for 40 years, I've seen so much farmland turn into subdivisions, which just breaks my heart because some of it's wonderful land. And I've attended some local county seminars, you know, with folks who work on that. And they say, you know, a lot of farmers use their land as their retirement, right? So they grow up and the kids don't want it and they sell it and they can make more money by selling the land. But I've heard about things called conservation easements, etc. How can we make it financially viable? You know, how can we create a system that really incents farmers financially, hopefully, if not otherwise, you know, to keep that land in farming? That's my question.
Okay, there's a couple of things I think you end up needing to do. Reach out, you know, and this is not just hey, do it like this, but you know, one of the things that you want to do in your local area, you know, reach out to your USDA, you know, because they have a number of conferences and projects and things that they do in certain vicinities, and they provide those answers, you know, and then they bring people like ourselves to share as stakeholders that, you know, provide not just the answers, but the connectiveness so that, you know, like the avenues for success are all the time going to need resources. And see, one of the big things that I didn't do along the way was always, and farmers and ranchers are like this. We want to pursue what we want to pursue as big people on our own, you know what I mean? And not access, you know, the specific resources that we need to finance what it is that we're doing. You know, so I mean, like the additional work that we end up having to do, you know, I mean, it's difficult, it's hard, but we put on all these hats. We got to be the banker, we got to be the attorney, we got to be the consultant, we got to be the labor out on the land. So it's, I think that, like, you know, the passion that we have, you know, to have a direct connection with the land, you know, is the lifestyle. Because if it's not a lifestyle that you love, if it's not a lifestyle that you enjoy, this is not something that you know, like you do as a novice. It's a commitment, but the commitment is, you know, to a healthy lifestyle. Now, my oldest daughter is involved with a number of projects, and they used to tell me stuff like, Daddy, you want to move somewhere way far out there and be away from everybody, and you're going to be a hermit. Well, now she's involved with, you know, farming and ranching projects. You know, so I mean, you know, it's like she's returned, she's made the whole cycle and has returned to where she's doing what is a value added project, because she's a cosmetologist. So she has a salon. Well, a lot of her products come from bees and bee pollen. So she's a beekeeper. So, you know, a lot of what she learned and a lot of what has become her passion, her lines that will develop over probably the next 12 months that are the value added products, you know, put her, whether she likes it or not, right back into the middle of the lifestyle. So, you know, but she couldn't do it unless she had this relationship to the land. So as we provide, I think, an example, a tangible example, and we're doing things like this and we point people in the right direction, then not only will we study it, but, you know, we'll have that antithesis, that mental antithesis that allows us to come up with the answers. See, because it's not just going to be my answer, it's going to be our answer, you know, as we share and we move forward in sharing.
Thank you very much. And just one quick comment. The Farmland Trust came out with a study of farms and ranches that practiced healthy soil for every dollar invested in healthy soil, $3 were returned in
Amen.
profit. So there's a great opportunity there.
Yes.
I want to turn to Sylvia, who raised her hand, who wanted to ask a question. And just note, we have about 10 or so more minutes of questions, and we have about 8 more questions after Sylvia. So I want to try to get to them if we can.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm Sylvia Ernestina Vergara, and I just loved your talk. It was wonderful. And this whole thing is very exciting to me. I am very encouraged. And I just want to say thank you. That's the first thing I want to say. And I always, I love to talk, and I love to give unasked for advice. And I just put in a huge cover crop here at the farm. I'm thrilled. It's just, I mean, I just couldn't be happier. The other thing is that, yes, I believe that what would keep our young people wanting to be on the farms is we really need a small farmers union here in New Mexico. We don't, farmers need to have health insurance. They need to have benefits. They need to have all the things that normal people in other businesses and jobs have. They don't have that. So that's, I feel, why we lose our young people, because they want those things, and our farms have to provide that. And so I think a union, a small farmers union, I'm very inspired by Cesar Chavez and what he did, which was totally amazing with the farm workers in his time. And providing a union, he developed special loans. I mean, they developed amazing things. And then the other thing is there's not going to be enough gas to bring in a lot of produce from other states. So the people aren't going to be looking to the smaller farmers here in New Mexico. And so you're right, you're absolutely right. We really do need to gear up, but the stores have to stop practicing a sort of bias. You know, it's really hard to compete against those big names, those big people that truck in. And the small farmers are kind of treated, you know, not very well. And so I just really want to see that out. And I feel you're doing that. I feel like this organization's doing that. You're elevating the farmer. You're elevating the human being, the spirit of real farming, you know, the poetics of farming, the integrity of farming. And I think that's really important. So I appreciate all you're doing, and I look forward to seeing and hearing more from you. That's it.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Rob, I wanted to give a brief response to that.
Of course.
And this means more work for all of us, but that's a good thing, because when you plant and you get a bumper crop that you didn't anticipate, good thing. Mail anyone that didn't get their questions answered, either mail them in or send them to Rob, and for the rest of the evening, anything that didn't get answered, I will call and give them an answer. And then the other thing is, send in your comments. You know, make sure that you're on this mailing list, because the things that do come up that we can address, we will address, because we want to be strong advocates and do good work.
So thank you for that. That's very thoughtful. And
Okay.
so Jermaine Mitchell has a question if she wanted to unmute.
Hi, I'm Jermaine. Hello, everybody. I want to commend you on your everybody that's working with the land and keeping the land nurtured and taking care of communities as farmers and ranchers. But I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to share that Dream Spring, and I posted our website in the chat box, is still taking PPP loan applications for small businesses. So I just wanted to share that information with the ranchers and farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine. And that's wonderful. And Ann Stauffer, do you have a question that you want to ask on mute?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, thank you, first of all.
Wonderful, wonderful presentation. I have a question about distribution of food that you grow, and what is your preference? What's your experience? I know you talked about commodity sharing, but I'm also interested in like use of CSAs or farmers markets, or how do you, sort of envision like the best way of, if we're, for local farmers to, have an economically viable way to distribute their food.
Okay, what you want to do is you want to connect with here. Are you in New Mexico?
I am.
Okay, you want to connect with the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. Okay, and you want to become a member. And then the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association actually coordinates all of the farmers markets in New Mexico. So, there's levels of membership, but, to actually participate in that program, you need to become a member. And then they have a guy who really, Mike Vitachinque, he does their marketing statewide. And he, a lady earlier was talking about how small farmers and ranchers are not treated well, when they go up against the conglomerates. Well, part of his purview is to deal with that. So, once you get in the association, what you want to do is when they have trainings and or conferences, participate, because a lot of those kind of things can be resolved. And what's interesting in New Mexico is that there is a tremendous push, for locally grown, locally purchased. So that would be a good avenue. So take your time. You can go online and pull them up. Okay.
We have so many wonderful questions, and
Thank you.
we may have time for one or two more. Katie Getz was next on my list from NMDA.
Yeah, hi Rob. Thanks Eugene for your message of life. Quick question about the soil health principles. Did you prioritize one above the other for maybe its ease of implementation? Do you find one more challenging than another? What is your approach to integrating animals and keeping the soil covered and maximizing biodiversity and all of those nitty-gritty nuts and bolts techniques?
Okay, it's process and system based, okay? Because like when we had the flood, I was in a meeting with the lead conservationist for the state, right? And he tells me, he said, oh yeah, when you have a flood, it's gonna take you 3 years. I was like, 3 years? I don't want to hear that. I'm looking for the immediate, and so I'm hitting my 3rd year, because the land has to heal itself. So you want to get involved, and it's not easy, but there's a lot of information with USDA. There's a lot of information with your local soil and conservation district programs, okay? But you have to make that step. You got to stay in contact with this group, and they have a lot of information. But then the taxing portion is to get the information, digest the information, and apply it to your situation. Because there's a lot of different ways, to go about things, and so what's going to be best for you? I'm having to, do a lot of things by hand. I'm having to search out what are my best sources for, amendments, who are the people in the community that provide the expertise of soil enrichment, so it's going to take time. So there's no easy answer, no easy fix. But one good thing, I think, across the United States, there are so many resources. We just have to reach out, connect, get the information, and apply it, And don't if you have 10 acres and you want to start working with half of it or 3 acres to work your system out, then you do it like that. Don't bite off more than what you can chew.
On that note, we're going to just respect people's times and commitments. We could have a discussion that's much longer because Eugene has a wealth of care and knowledge to share. And so Isabel may help those that didn't get their questions answered to have that dialogue with Eugene so that those questions could be addressed. And I do want to thank you, Eugene, so very much for your presentation. It means the world to us. And I also want to give you any chance to have a concluding remark before Christina concludes the evening.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to tell you guys, reach over and pat yourselves on the back, because I tell a lot of people no, so I mean, and I do that because it's like I got to spend time on what it is that I do. And, I just applaud your work. I think it's good work, and this makes me know the work that it is. And I said that to the audience. If you have your questions in and they get to Isabel, who will take the time to respond to you throughout the course of tonight, I'll commit myself to that. But when tomorrow comes, we have no idea the dilemmas that are going to hit us when we wake up in the morning. This thing with George, was just, who knew that would happen? And we're into 2 weeks, going into a third week. So we don't know what kind of dilemma is going to hit us tomorrow, And as farmers and ranchers, fences could be down and we're going to have to plug with that. So, if you get your questions to Isabel, I'll commit to, following up and getting those questions answered. And we just are, I'm humbled, that we could do this. And I don't do this for everybody. So you are a special group of people.
Christina, do you want to send us off together?
I will. And I'm going to add my thanks to Eugene. And I'm just really pleased that I get to serve on the Policy Council with you and see you at the National Young Farmers Coalition meetings occasionally.
Yes.
We will definitely be in touch. And for everyone who stuck around, our next Soil Stories will be next Tuesday. We were able to snag Eugene in the middle, and we did that. So we'll be having the next one pretty quick. Dee Dee Pursehouse is the author of 2 or 3 books. The Ecology of Care is one of them. And she is the founder of the Land and Leadership Institute in Vermont. And she holds webinars very, very regularly with different luminaries in the soil health space. So we hope you'll be joining us. And I believe Isabel's going to be sending out the announcement for that on Friday. So you can look for it and register, so you'll get the link. But with that, I think we are going to send you off to have a wonderful evening, and look forward to seeing you all again next week, maybe.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Thanks everyone for coming. Good night.
Yeah, thanks, Eugene. I had to leave. We had a swarm of bees collect under one of our plum trees, so we had to go shake it off the branch and put it in a new box. So we've got a new colony, and I've got 2 already, so it's very exciting. They're my first pasture animals.